Hello everyone and welcome back to The Little Quilter. Today we're going to be jumping into starting the Ruby Sampler quilt and I'm super excited. I just wanted to go over the thread that I was going to be using. So originally I had purchased the Seagull, this light gray glide thread to do on this quilt. I had done a lot of research and a lot of people recommended doing a light gray thread on a red and white quilt because especially I do not want to change between red and white all the time. So I looked at getting this. Then I ended up doing the armadillo quilt and I used this thread for the armadillo quilt. It ended up being perfect for that quilt. And that's when I decided I didn't want to use the same thread again. I like switching it up. I like doing things different. And every quilt is a new journey, and I like, not that you can't reuse thread, I think it would work great with this, but I decided to purchase this pink rose, pink thread right here. It's a beautiful light pink. I got the matching cotton candy glide thread here, Magna Glide thread, so I don't have to worry about my tension. So that is what I've decided to use this time. I think that when you lay these out, I would show you, but it really just doesn't show up very well on camera, but just take it from me that they look pretty similar. So I actually think the light pink looks a little bit better on a lot of the white. It kind of blends a little bit more than the gray does. Overall, I don't think it would be a big deal either way that you went, but I'm going to do the light pink just to do something fun and new. If you're wondering where I got my thread, I really like quiltedjoy.com. I'll link them down below. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just letting you know. What I liked about their website was you could choose a thread, and then if they had a pre-wound bobbins, they would coordinate a matching pre-wound bobbin. And I really liked that because it can be extremely difficult to tell thread color online. And I have a chart for it, but it's still just hard to know which one's gonna look really good together. So having them do that extra step for me is really worth the while. And so I would definitely recommend them if you're trying out a new thread and you're not sure what you want to do for the bottom line. They also will recommend if you hand wind your bobbins and you don't want to use pre-wounds, they have recommendations for buying thread for the bottom of the fabric as well. So just a little note there in case you're interested, but let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to start with doing the border because that's the first part of the quilt up here. So there are 3 borders in this quilt, so we're going to start off with the first border, which I think is going to be the most interesting. It's got this sort of diamond pattern here, so I am excited to get going. Let's jump into quilting, and as always I will show you what I've done on my Procreate on my iPad, and enjoy the quilt. Okay, so the first thing that I did before I even started quilting was to mark out my lines with a blue water-soluble marker, and I have a spray bottle that I use that just has water on it to make sure that those lines are gone. I was very nervous about marking this much on a quilt because I have had issues before with those markers not wanting to erase or being a bit stubborn, or you think you've got them all gone and then they show up later. So I thankfully have not had any issues thus far, but I do not let this marker sit longer than the time that it takes me to quilt. So if I were to mark all of these and then something were to happen and I was only able to do a couple of them, I would erase all of them before I finished my quilting. So I would not leave this marker on there for multiple days. I think that the longer that marker sits, the more likely it is that it's going to be difficult to come out. So for me, marking is something that I would do and then immediately quilt it and then immediately use your spray bottle to remove it. I'm using Natalia Bonner's 4-in-1 quilting roller to do a lot of this, and initially I was using the curved portion of this for all of it, and I finally realized that was kind of silly, which there's a point in here where I switch to one of her other rollers that has a loop so that I don't have to be placing my hand in an awkward position while quilting. So you'll notice that. The things that I marked here were the center line of the square as well as where I would want to stop to keep that square rather than making it into more of like a, a leaning rectangle basically. And then I went back through and used that to make those center circles. I did contemplate whether I should fill those in, maybe doing like some matchstick quilting in the center of each of those stars, but I just wasn't sure if I would like that or not. And also that's a lot of work to end up pulling it out. So I did consider doing one. I haven't given up the idea, but I'm just not sure. I also feel like there's going to be quite a bit of quilting on this in the center of the blanket or of the quilt. And so I do want to, not draw attention away from that area of the quilt. The next thing that I'm doing here is just going back through and using that 1/4 inch guideline, which really ends up being about half an inch guideline to outline each of these diamonds that I've done. And I really like the way that this ends up looking. I think it really finishes off those little squares. The last thing that I did here was to mark a 1/4 inch border all the way around the edge of the quilt. I think this is going to help me whenever I'm binding to kind of know where that seam will sit, but also it just kind of makes a nice border to this. This is the spot where the next step would have been filling in each of those little blank, half hexagons. But as I finished through this, I wasn't sure if I should actually fill those in. So I'll finish this and then we can talk about that. Okay, everybody, so I finished the border here, but I'm not sure. So my original plan had been to do the same design here that I've done, but then to fill in this sort of centerpiece with some swirl designs. However, once I got this finished, I almost like the look as it is now, but I'm also questioning. So I'm not sure if I should continue filling it in with the swirls or if I should leave it as is. I think having that blank sort of background part for a border really does work well because a border is a frame for the quilt. So it doesn't need to have just tons of stuff filled in because the main portion of the quilting and the quilt is going to be that center portion. So I'm kind of torn. So if you guys have made it through the video to this point, I would love to hear your opinions on whether you think I should go ahead and fill the rest of this part in or if I should leave it as is and that it looks good like it is. So let me know your opinion. I'm undecided, and stay tuned. Next videos, we're going to be jumping into doing the other two borders. I think I can do both of those borders this time, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, give me a thumbs up, and let me know your comments on whether I should fill that rest of that border in. All right, guys, see you next time.